wonder. Yeah, it's not letting me click the, it's not letting me, it shows that it's trying to let me make him a co-host, but then it won't,
okay.
Won't do that. So I wonder, yeah, you're not able to do that either, I take it.
Okay, let's keep moving. So sure. Tom seemed to describe to me that your background on the mean streets of Jersey kind of helped form you. Anything you'd like to share about?
Well, that's great.
That?
I would say this. I mean, my father actually grew up in a very difficult part of New Jersey, Paterson, New Jersey. He was a high school dropout, kind of running from street gangs and that kind of a thing. And so basically, he gave us a much different upbringing. So we grew up in a fairly decent area. But I would say, yeah, just growing up, I had that sense of, how would I say it? I was just pretty undisciplined, unfocused. I had a dad who was an alcoholic, and he basically would say, he was pretty disengaged. Eventually, he stopped drinking, which was great. But I didn't have the best upbringing in terms of that way. So a number of those elements just impact you. So basically, found myself in need of focus and discipline and desiring to get a little bit more sense of identity, who I was and what that was supposed to be about. So that was a big driver for me to connect up to the military. And looks like we've lost Joy there. So maybe she's, oh, here we go. Let me do this. Pop back in, maybe. All right, looks like I have an issue there. So yeah, thanks everyone who's hanging in there. Looks like I'm flying solo at this point. I'll give it another minute.
Hi, Brian.
Hi. All right, back again.
I'm here, even though you can't see me. It's very exciting.
Yeah, no problem. No problem.
I am not sure if you had the chance to share about your life growing up, and if I just happened to miss that, or if you had technical difficulties too.
No, I did a little bit. I did share a little bit about that.
Okay, great. I'm so sorry I missed that. But I'd love to start hearing about your experience in the Marines.
Yes. Excellent. Yeah. Well, it was great. I mean, it was great for me to get to reflect, especially today, because I mean, being a Marine, kind of wearing that name, it just is meaningful. It becomes a real sense of, identity and community. And so thinking about it from a leadership vantage point, it was great for me to do that. And so as I did that, here's a few things that came to mind for me in terms of leadership lessons that I've learned in the Marine Corps. So the first thing that I thought of, if I'm starting, I kind of went chronologically. And the first thing I thought of that I really learned that just imprinted in my heart deeply was the power of prophetic challenge. And so this comes out of an experience when I first went into the recruiter's office. So I basically was driving to college one day, and I was a fraternity guy and living kind of, basically no idea. I had 4 majors and 4 semesters in college. No idea what I wanted to be when I grew up. And I just had this inner sense, like, if I don't do something different, I'm in big trouble. And so I was not the athletic type in school. I'm actually quite a big guy. I mean, I'm 6'3" and kind of a bigger guy. And so people think I played football and was all into the athletic side. I actually was on the music side. I had a scholarship for jazz performance to college the first time. And so I had a little bit of a different background. So as I was driving to school one day, I stopped at the Marine Corps recruiter's office. Now you got to picture this. I am completely out of shape. I probably ran the president's half-mile thing that you have to run in 6th grade, but I am just not athletic, not looking anything like anybody in shape. I couldn't have ran a quarter mile if you had asked me to. And so I walked into the Marine Corps recruiter's office, and the minute I walked through the door, now, caveat, I understand that the recruiter was just doing his job, but here's what he said to me. He said, "Son, the minute you walk through that door, I am looking at a United States Marine, and you're a man who can step into this challenge, and you can actually live out our values of honor, courage, and commitment. And so I sat in this desk in front of him, and he pulled up these value cards that he had on his desk, and I felt something come alive in my heart, honestly, for the first time. I looked nothing like a Marine. I looked nothing like anyone. Like, if that was me on the other side, I would have been like, hey, I think you're in the wrong office. Like, there's Weight Watchers down the street or something. But like, seriously, he spoke so deeply. And honestly, for me, it was kind of the first time where I basically would say that I was challenged in a way that I responded to. And I think every human being is wired up for challenge. I think men especially, men don't change until the pain tolerance is kind of above and beyond what they can handle. So, I mean, just getting that high challenge, and I intentionally use the word prophetic challenge. And so I think as leaders, that was something, as I look back, I thought, I intentionally try to do that, is to look at people that I'm investing in, look at people I'm apprenticing. That's a word that I'm passionate about. And at Giant Worldwide, that's something we're passionate about, is how do we come alongside people and apprentice them? And part of that is identifying what are the things in that individual's life that maybe they're not seeing, and, who are they becoming? And how can we actually get one step ahead and speak into those things? Because, again, most times I would say that we're kind of in an encouragement-starved culture, and a culture where people just really long for, man, if you took the time to reflect and think about specific words of encouragement that would apply to somebody on your team or somebody in your family, it's amazing how just people's, demeanor changes. People, you even start to get some insecurities that come out, like, oh, that's not me. But actually it is them, and we need to be speaking that into their lives more and more. So that was really the first kind of big rock that I learned as I go kind of chronologically through the journey. So, yeah.
Well, Brian, I don't know if this was on your agenda, but I'm kind of curious now. So you walked into the recruiting office and you said that, you probably looked like you should have walked into the Weight Watchers office. What did that piece of the transformation look like for you?
Oh, yeah. So, yeah, again, and this, I think the physical transformation is just a picture of the internal transformation. So, yeah, I weighed 265 pounds of just pure, not an ounce. I mean, whatever bare requirement muscle that you need in your body, I probably had it. So I went from 265 to 225 on my own before I left for boot camp. And I attribute it to that recruiter saying, you can do this. You better get your tail after it and get to work. So I went down to 225. I got to boot camp, and I remember the night before I was drinking this drink that just cleanses your body so that you don't have any extra weight, because I barely made it. So I'm showing up to Marine Corps boot camp having to do this initial strength test, like dehydrated and, barely making it. So I went from 225, 13 weeks later in boot camp, to 195. And then when I went off to infantry school, I went from 195 back up to 220 because I was an M60 machine gunner. So I stood up, and they're like, Williamson, stand up. And I stood up, and so they looked at me and said, yep, you're our M60 guy. So I got to be the M60 machine gunner. So I was pretty much a beast coming out of infantry school. Now, the years have not been too kind. My wife cooks really well, and I've been out since 1996. But nevertheless, it was an incredible journey that way externally. But again, I think even more so internally, just the changes that went on.
That's really neat. That's a great story. I love what you said about the physical transformation simply being a reflection of what was happening inside. So I'd love to hear some of the piece of what you wish the Marines had taught you.
It's really interesting on that, because I can only think of one thing that I wish I would have learned. I suppose you could get really picky, and you look back and you say, well, I could have probably, intentionally pursued, I happened to get close with a couple of the generals when I was stationed back at Parris Island, and maybe I could have pulled a little bit more from them in terms of their knowledge and their expertise. But I would say that the thing that I wish I had learned, and this actually gets to the back end, so getting out of the Marine Corps in 1996, was I wish I would have learned to detox from a directive culture. Now, here's what I mean by that. So one of the things obviously by nature of the system, so anybody that's listening to this, whether it's recording or live, one of the things that is inherent in the whole system and structures of the military is obviously there's a rank order, and you do what you're told. And if you're at a certain level, you're going to be giving commands and giving orders, and then you're going to be receiving those things. And as a result, even though the government sometimes gets a hard edge for making all the bureaucracy, and it takes a year to buy a new kind of a pencil or something. For all of that, there's a big efficiency that's in the military. And I think one of the things that was sort of the water that I was swimming in the Marine Corps that I really appreciated was, man, there's not a lot of, how do I say it, extra drama, gossip, a lot of complaining. It's just the culture is you have a submissive heart. You have a posture of like, you would never say, no, gunnery sergeant, I don't want to do that, or sorry, colonel, I think, what about my input? So here's the thing with that. I kind of have, a passion for this tension between directive leadership and consulting. Like more consensus-oriented leadership. And when you take those principles and you put them in a nonprofit organization, or if you put them in a for-profit, you're going to start hearing things like, look at Kotter's, 8 steps of change model. And you're going to hear things like, make sure that you form a guiding coalition and then get engagement and buy-in. And I do believe that all of those things are important. I'm doing a PhD in organizational leadership. I'm in the last days of that. And so I certainly believe that scientifically that there's times where certainly and strategically, there's times where we need to engage people's in the process a big time. I'm a very collaborative leader in that sense. But I think I was for the first wave of my leadership outside of the Marine Corps, I didn't realize how deeply I was swimming in the water of this directive leadership model. And so I would try to go into situations with teams and individuals. And because of a level of whether it's position or just respect for me as a person, people would do stuff. But after a time, I found that a gap existed between people saying, boy, I wish I had a voice. Like, I wish I had more engagement. Like, Brian just does his own thing. And yeah, that's just Brian. And I excused it away. I was like, yep, it is just me. But eventually you'll catch up to me and you'll figure out that my way is the right way. And, we'll all be happy. Now, I think that for me, I wish earlier on I would have realized that coming out, and I would have adjusted my leadership style a little bit more. So again, I think we need to be pedaled down on both directive leadership at times and collaborative leadership. And I think people get people miss out when it's all one or the other. So if it's all one-way communication and all one-way directive stuff, you get morale problems, engagement problems, all sorts of things. And people just say, well, you don't care, I'm out of here. So on the flip side, if it's all consensus, collaborative, it becomes, well, we don't move anywhere quickly. So that's probably my biggest, what I wish I would have learned on the backside of my time in the Marine Corps.
Do you have any tips for striking a balance between directive and collaborative?
Yes, I do. Yes, I would say that what I've learned there is you have to be able to discern where someone is at in their development or where a team is at in its development, and calibrate the appropriate amount of direction or collaboration. So what research tells us actually right now is that when a new employee onboards into an organization, actually being an inspirational leader to them at that time, that's important. People want a sense of, hey, you're part of something bigger. We're a team that is, top notch, like, high performance. You're part of a great organization, and you want to be inspiring. Like, this is our vision. We're going to increase our revenue, or we're going to get after this hill. So I think inspiration is important, but research says, actually the new person in the organization, like, they just want to be told what to do. They need direction. They need high direction. So I think the biggest thing I would say is you need to understand, where is the team at and where is the individual at? And in light of that, is it a time for high direction and to hold the line on certain aspects of what needs to happen? Or is it a time where you've apprenticed them well enough, like there's enough there's enough consistency of values and vision to where when you do collaboration, the guardrails are in place. So I interviewed a CEO recently who basically said that my job, one of the key aspects of my job is to define the what with like stunning clarity and laser focus and say, this is what we're going to do. And I leave the how up to everybody else. And I think there's some wisdom there in the sense that the what part really is, there's a directive element to getting a team on the same page, to getting a organization heading in the right direction. So I think laser focus on the what and the boundaries, and then you can get all kinds of engagement and collaboration. And I would argue that, boy, if you don't do that, you're missing out. And we all fall off the horse on one side or the other. So that would be my biggest thing, is discerning. And a good book resource on that is Situational Leadership. Is it's a simple managerial model that's been widely used. So I think if somebody's just getting started, that's a great readable, or you could actually even just Google situational leadership and kind of understand a little bit about follower, where are they at and what kind of leadership style would be most effective.
I love that. That's super helpful. We are going to be wrapping up here soon, but Brian, here's a question for you. If you could speak to somebody who is getting ready to join the Marines, what would you tell them?
Yes, I would say, if you were not born to do it, find the nearest Air Force recruiter. Because there's part of me that I tell the Air Force guys that I have a good friend who's the colonel in the Air Force, and I just actually interviewed a 3-star general the other day. Fascinating individual. But I always tell people, we used to drive our bikes, and when I was stationed in Okinawa, Japan, and we used to ride over to Kadena Air Force Base because it was like luxurious. They had Popeye's chicken and nicer barracks and stuff. But I think here's what I'd say. One of my other learning lessons was do hard things. Mm-hmm. And so I think people function at optimally at slightly more than what feels like healthy challenge. And I'd say, man, go for it. I think we're way more resilient and way more pliable than we think. And so I think it is, I would be the testimony that says it is not physical. If I could do it, you could do it. I could guarantee that. I could show you pictures. I could show you you could talk to my parents. I mean, my life story, I was completely out of control, not at all focused. And, I think that mental state that says, you know what, I'm going to do hard things. I'm going to press in and do something that matters is huge. So that would be my input.
That's really good. That's really applicable to a lot of us too. Brian, if people want to contact you or stay in touch with you, what's the best way for them to do that?
Absolutely. Yeah, certainly. I blog on our blog at giantworldwide.com, so you can catch up with some of our leadership resources there. You can, my email, you will follow me on Twitter or message me on Twitter, which is, at @B_UU. That's another way, or my email is just my name, brian.williamson@giantworldwide.com. And so that would be another way.
Great. Thank you so much, Brian. And for those of you who have participated with us, we thank you for joining us. This is a webinar by Tom P. Nebel, who decided not to show up. But if you'd like to stay in touch with Tom, his website and newsletter can be found at tompnebel.com. And he is at Tom P. Nebel across all social media platforms. So have a happy Tuesday, friends. Bye.
Joy, you did amazing. Fantastic. Way to step in. All right. Take care.